Greetings, Chicago. My name is Dr. Brenda Marie Dixon, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Major Taylor Trailkeepers Chicago, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the well-being of neighborhoods in Chicago's South Side. I'm sitting here today with Luann Hamilton from Active Trans that I'll introduce in a few minutes, but I first want to just give you a little bit of background about, well, what is Major Taylor Trailkeepers? Who are you? How did you get founded? Where did you come from? So we're in Illinois, not-for-profit community organization created to improve the lives of individuals and families residing in historically underserved neighborhoods by working to make our communities a fun, healthy, and safe place to live, work, and play. A fun, healthy, safe place to live, work, and play. The Major Taylor Trail is currently the only trail in the United States named after Walter Marshall Major Taylor, who was an American cyclist and is the first African-American world sports champion. He became the first African-American world sports champion by winning the 1-mile race on August 10th of 1899 in Montreal. Major Taylor became the world's fastest cyclist at the height of the Jim Crow era. All of our African-American sports heroes, such as Joe Louis, Jesse Owens, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, they all stand on the shoulders of Major Taylor. Now, let me tell you some more about the Major Taylor Trail. It's the only trail that runs north to south through the heart of the south side of Chicago to the border of Riverdale. The trail is about 8.6 miles, and it's the longest rail-to-trail project inside of Chicago city limits. The trail starts at Dan Ryan Woods near 83rd Street, Grove 16, and ends at Whistler Woods in Riverdale. Later in our show, we will show you a map of the trail and the wards that it runs through. But in this new monthly talk show, our goal and purpose is to gain a more intimate look at the issues and barriers related to the neighborhoods of the south side of Chicago that surround the Major Taylor Trail and that inhibits the areas in the community from becoming that beautiful, safe, fun, healthy place to live, work, and play, starting with improvements on the trail. We were also initially founded back in 2017 by myself and my two sons, AJ Arrington and Dominique Arrington, and originally our organization's name was called CNIP, which was an acronym for Community Neighborhood Improvement Project. And our goal and vision was the same. We wanted to improve the conditions for the Major Taylor Trail. In 2019, we reincorporated as the Major Taylor Trailkeepers Chicago, and we expanded our board to include community leaders and other cyclists. Now, as a nonprofit organization, we were finally able to receive grants that allowed us to commence our mission. We're very grateful to Active Trans, as Active Transportation Alliance, for serving as our fiscal sponsor for those early years when we first started. So now I want to talk about some of the goals of our organization. So one of our goals is to actually increase public awareness and understanding of community issues and secure resources to implement improvements to the infrastructure of the community with an emphasis on public transportation, specifically bicycling, walking, parks, recreation, and economic development. We work collaboratively to promote and support 4 goals. Goal 1, improving conditions for bicycling, walking, and public transportation that increase access and the aesthetic appearance of our communities. Second goal, developing and maintaining economic independence for the community and neighborhood. Third goal, increasing access to food options such as community gardens, farmers markets, and affordable access to a variety of fruits and vegetables. And fourth goal, creating beautiful artistic placemaking structures and artifacts throughout the trail and throughout the community. We work tirelessly to collaborate with city, county, state affiliates, and other like-minded organizations to provide up-to-date education, increase public awareness and understanding of community issues with an emphasis on the public arts, transportation, parks, recreation that have historically, in communities that have historically been underserved. So, that's enough about who we are and what we do. I want to introduce our first guest this month, which is Luann Hamilton. Let me tell you a little bit about Luann. She's the vice president of Active Trans, and she's been a member of Active Trans since 1997, and I think on the board since 2019. Luann is a senior advisor at TransSmart Incorporated, which is one of the largest women and minority-owned transportation engineering firms in the Midwest. Luann is the former Deputy Commissioner for the Division of Project Development at the Chicago Department of Transportation. During her 34 years at CDOT, she led a staff dedicated to multimodalism during the growth of Chicago's pedestrian and bicycle programs and the launch of Vision Zero. She received her bachelor's degree at DePaul University and master's at Penn State, and is a longtime resident of the Peterson Woods neighborhood on Chicago's far north side. Luann has worked on developing trails, including Major Taylor Trail, Burnham Greenway, Valley Line Trail, North Shore Channel Trail, Underbridge Connections, Bloomingdale Trail, the 606, Navy Pier Flyover, South Lakefront Bike Ped Bridges. And I'm sure there's some things that I may have left out. So with that, Luann, can you introduce yourself, mentioning anything that I might have missed, and, or highlighting any points that I might have missed, and tell us how you first got involved with the Major Taylor Trail.
Well, I think you covered my bio pretty well, so I'll go right into the Major Taylor Trail.
Okay.
I first got involved probably 1991.
Okay.
We got a call at CDOT from the mayor's office. This was when Richard M. Daley was in office, and we were asked to come to a meeting with the Conrail Railroad to talk about an abandoned rail line on the south side called the Panhandle that they were interested in selling to us.
Okay.
And so I went to the meeting, heard all about the project, and from then on we were focused on finding funding to actually develop the trail and dealing with the railroad, which was a challenge.
Yeah, I remember those tracks. I as a little girl, I grew up in that community. I literally, my childhood home and still our family residence is about 5 blocks from the railroad that you were describing that was very much neglected during the time. So can you share with us, because I'm going somewhere with this, can you share with us some of the history of the development of the trail? Like how did we get from the railroad converting to the trail, and the challenges, some of the challenges that we face? Because in our minds, I know if you look at the city map, it says that the Major Taylor Trail is complete, but to our modern day standards, it is not, because it doesn't have many of the amenities that many of the other trails that we see, especially urban trails, have. So before we go into what it doesn't have, can you give us, tell us the story about the development of the trail and how we got to where we are?
We were seeking federal funds to develop the trail, and this was when federal programs to fund bicycle and pedestrian facilities were brand new. Okay. So it was the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act of 1991 that established programs like CMAQ, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Improvement Program, which funds projects to get people out of their cars or reduce tailpipe emissions, and then the Transportation Enhancement Program, which funds bicycle and pedestrian projects. So we targeted those programs to get funding for this project, which was then called the Conrail Bikeway. Okay. We were successful. By 1993, we had gotten about $5 million matched. So 80% of that federal and 20% City of Chicago funds. And that gave us the resources to get started on the project. Okay. But I would say one of the major determinants of how the trail developed was that our colleagues we were working with were at the Forest Preserve District of Cook County. So we were not working with the Park District. Park District was not involved. And the Forest Preserve doesn't do the same kinds of trails as the Park District. So they do more rustic trails, if you want to call it that. So the trails are dawn to dusk. They don't stay open as late as Park District trails, which usually stay open until 11 p.m., which means you don't have lighting on the Forest Preserve trails, and you don't have a lot of the other amenities we associate with a Park District trail, like water fountains. And also we were competing for the first time for these federal funds, so we had to have a project that was cost effective.
Yeah.
So we had to keep the budget on the low side, because otherwise we wouldn't have gotten funding, because there were a lot of people in the region who didn't understand why you would want to build a bike trail and what does that have to do with getting people out of their cars and air pollution. They thought of it as totally recreational and not having any other benefits.
Yeah, and the trail has so many other benefits. If you sit out on, you know, we do several cleanup days a year. And if you stay in that trail area for any extended amount of time, especially on the south end, you'll see people with literally walking to the Aldi's, which isn't a full service grocery store, but you know, they're using it as a pathway, a means of transportation, as well as you'll see joggers and cyclers. But I'm happy that you, and I'm going off subject, but I'm happy that you mentioned that, because a lot of people, when they think about the Major Taylor Trail and they look at the amenities, I guess, that it doesn't have, a lot of times people have that sense of anger when they then see something like the 606 or the Lakefront Trail. But those trails those trails came much later than the Major Taylor Trail, and this was a new initiative for the city. And at that time, it just wasn't in the framework. I'm making a statement, but I'm asking a question because I wasn't there.
Right.
But is it accurate that just having park benches, water fountains, artwork, that just wasn't part of the mindset? It wasn't that, oh, this is on the south side, and so because it's on the south side in lower income communities, we're not going to do this. It just wasn't part of the framework in 1991 for doing a rails to trails conversion. Is that an accurate, fair statement?
Yes, it is accurate.
Okay, and I really wanted to have that kind of said and explained, so that what we're really advocating for is, now that trail is established, and it was established with the best intentions, now we're like, can we now add some of these things that were not included at that time, since we are doing some of those improvements in other parts of the city. So all right, so you've told me that history about, and you've set the stage of what the real issue is. It's just the types of things that we're looking for today on the trail just wasn't included in the planning. Not intentional, it just wasn't part of the Rails to Trails conversion projects at that time.
Right, and also the Chicago Park District wasn't involved, and the Forest Preserve was. And this is when there was a head of the Forest Preserve who cared about these kinds of projects and wanted to do trails. And when there was an election held and that had left, the Forest Preserves lost interest. And then we spent many years trying to find sponsors to take on the operation and maintenance. We were building it, but we aren't operators of park facilities. So it took a lot of work to get the Park District to step up, and later the Forest Preserve to do more with their portion as well.
Yeah, and I will say that, you know, because when I first started advocating for the trail, which was in 2013, I've been doing this work for about 10 years, I have noticed a significant difference in change in how the Chicago Park District responds, and the maintenance has greatly improved. So, you've helped me set the stage for what is it that we're really advocating for. We want to modernize and come up to modern times with our trail that runs through the heart of the South Side. So now I want to ask another really important question that I know you can tell the story of. I've heard stories, but I want to hear your version. How did the trail get its name?
Okay. It started out as the Conrail Bikeway. That was the working name for getting grants. But then we had some community forums to talk about the grants that we were receiving, and there was a lot of pushback. People were upset. Why are we spending this money on a trail instead of on police? That was one of the things raised. Like, we have crime in our neighborhood, and we should be using these funds for policing. And our point was, this is a grant program that's only for bicycle pedestrian projects. We can't use it for policing. And someone said, well, why don't you do this in Winnetka? And I said, well, why shouldn't your community have the same amenities you can find in Winnetka?
Thank you.
And in the end, we got through that process. But we still didn't really have a champion. And Alderman Rugai was the only alderman of the 5 at the time. It was wards 18, 19, 21, 34, and 9. She was the only one who really took interest, but she wanted it to be all about Beverly and her area. And so she was looking for like a historic person in her community that could be named after. And I knew that wasn't the right answer because most of the wards were headed by African American aldermen and contained majority African American population. So we needed to come up with someone that others could identify with. And that's when we stumbled upon Major Taylor. Basically, I was watching the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, and they did a segment on Major Taylor, and they had some of his family on the segment talking about what he had done. And I had never heard of Major Taylor before, and so I was really interested. So when I got back to the office, we talked about looking into him more to see if maybe he could be somebody we could use to motivate people to get engaged with the trail. So it turned out there was a book already out about his life, and we bought 5 copies, and we gave each of those 5 aldermen copies of the book. And Carrie Austin, who was the alderman of the 34th Ward and the head of the budget committee eventually, read the book, and she was very enthusiastic and very excited about having a trail named after Major Taylor in her community. So that was what we needed because she became our strongest advocate among the council members to be able to push forward and get the project done.
Yeah, and she was a strong supporter of all of our efforts, even from when we were CNIP to when we were Major Taylor Trail Keepers, and now our current alderman is also very supportive. He said he's going to come on the show in 1 month and talk to us about that. So I love that story of how it was named after Major Taylor, and I'm so thankful that it was named after him, because obviously if you read the book, you know that his final resting place is here in Chicago. So I'm a couple other things that I want to touch on. Now, one of the things that one of our biggest we have many challenges. So can we pull up a map of the Major Taylor Trail? We have many challenges. So our trail, the 34th Ward, doesn't exist anymore. And so the map that our viewers see right now is the current structure of the wards. It goes through 4 different wards, and you see it run through the heart of the South Side. But you can see how in the 19th Ward, it's a dotted line, meaning that's off street. So you can go ahead and take the map down. And so one of our myriad of challenges and issues is that many people do not realize that it's one continuous trail, because the actual paved trail that followed the railroad line stops at 95th, and then it goes through the Chicago city streets down Prospect Avenue until you get to 105th and Vincennes, and then it cuts back over onto the trail to go on down to the river, into Riverdale. And I know that there's that, to me, it doesn't make sense to many of our community members and residents. It doesn't make sense. Why is there this disjointed trail? Because it feels like 2 different trails. And because of poor signage and wayfinding, people get lost. So can you talk about some of the challenges faced during the development of the trail, but specifically help us understand why is there this gap between 95th and 105th that did not follow the rail lines?
When Conrail abandoned this rail line in the 1980s, they were free to start selling off pieces of it. It was before the Rails to Trails Act really was established that helps to preserve rail corridors for other transportation uses. And so they were selling whenever they could, before they came to see us, to offer it to us. Once we did more investigation, we found out there were a lot of holes. And the biggest one of all is Beverly Point. Beverly Point is a residential development that runs from 96th to 103rd on Beverly. And it's split-level homes that were built in the 1980s, I believe, late 80s, along that street. And the railroad sold that land to the developer. So it took out that whole segment from 95th to basically 103rd. And then we had to figure out a way to bring people by street to get back on the trail on the other side of 103rd. So it was one of the challenges, but it was typical of the railroad. They sold other segments as well that we had to buy back at higher prices.
Oh, wow.
And so they caused a lot of extra time and energy and cost for us to finish this project. Wow. And that's part of the reason it's disjointed. When you look at a trail like the 606, it's all on a grade separation. It's on an embankment. And so it didn't get those kinds of interruptions because the railroad couldn't really sell a piece of the embankment to somebody else.
Right.
So it was in better, more coherent condition.
Okay.
Whereas we were dealing with all these holes and cutouts, and we had to work around all of them. Yeah. And that's thanks to the railroad.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that part of history too. There's so much history behind the development of the trail. It's almost like we need to have our own book on the history of the Major Taylor Trail. We literally could publish one. So for the sake of time, you've already answered one of the other questions as far as why it doesn't have some of the amenities, and those are the things that we're advocating for, is to get some of those same amenities there. And hopefully this show and your involvement in active trans support will help us get closer to that goal. So I want to ask you one other question. What can we, and when I say we, us, as well as our viewers, what can we do that would help get improvements to our trail implemented? What are some things that just the regular person that lives in the community could do? What can we do to help make this vision and dream a reality, that our trail is up to date and modern?
Well, I would say advocacy is one of the main things you can do to advocate with elected officials in particular to try and get grants to be able to do more improvements. In particular, because this trail is at grade, it has a lot of difficult, dangerous crossings that it makes. Like 87th is a great example.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Halston 119th isn't great.
127th.
127th is awful. So all of those places could use a lot more investment to make it safer for people to use the trail and get past the traffic.
And for those crossings, because there's a myriad of issues. So if we're just going to talk about the crossings across the busy streets, who would that be? Would that be CDOT or would that be the Park District that would be responsible for making improvements to those crossings?
It's a combination. Because also, for example, 87th Street, I believe, is Cook County jurisdiction. So the city has to work with Cook County to make any changes there. So it could also be Cook County that could help with these changes that are needed. Okay.
All right. Well, great. Well, now we've got a few minutes left. So I'll mention a few of accomplishments that we've had. I don't know if we have a picture of the mural that can be pulled up. But I don't think, if you haven't been on the trail, many people don't know that there's a mural. There's two murals on the trail. One that's at 111th and the intersection, where we are advocating to have a statue of Major Taylor at that intersection. Currently, the Chicago Art Society puts one on loan there. But at the end of the trail, there it is, at the end of the trail, there's a 400-foot mural that goes over the Little Calumet River, and that mural actually won a national award from Rails to Trails. So if you haven't had a chance to get out on the trail, please go out on the trail and just explore the trail. If you want to know more about our organization, please go to our website, majortaylortrailkeepers.org. I also want to thank everyone. Well, I want to thank you, Luann, for coming and joining us this month. And I think I may want you to come back, or if not you, someone from Active Trans, because today I really wanted to focus on the history of how did we get to where we are with the trail. But one of these months I want to talk about just what Active Trans does and how powerful the organization is in helping us with our cause, as you all have helped us. But I want to thank you for coming and joining us this month. To our viewers, I ask that you continue to join us each month for candid, intimate, fun, and upbeat conversations with various community leaders from the greater Chicagoland area related to issues and barriers that hinder the neighborhoods surrounding the Major Taylor Trail from becoming a beautiful, safe, fun, and healthy place to live, work, and play, and progress being made toward this goal. Next month, we will talk about the fact that the south end of the trail goes through a food desert, and we will have Lady Monica Moss from the Greater Chicago Food Depository and Trinity United Church of Christ to talk to us about that. And with that being said, I think we're out of time. Are we out of time?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
It was
for
fun.
coming. I really appreciate it.